Joining me now on Skype with his thoughts on the GOP platform and the first night of the Republican convention is Christopher Bedford, senior editor for the Federalist. Chris, welcome back. Good to see you. So what are your thoughts on the Republican Party's decision to stick with the 2016 platform?
There are good things in this and there are bad things in this. This is a win for Jared Kushner, who was pushing for this because he didn't want to rock the boat. He didn't want to change things. He didn't want to risk any kind of party fighting during the RNC. He was comfortable with the platform they had run in 2016. Social conservatives, to your point, made huge gains in 2016, putting abortion front and center, even including the defense of traditional marriage that a lot of the more liberal members of the Republican Party would have liked to have moved beyond. Unfortunately, for a lot of social conservatives outside of the White House, the Senate and the House of Representatives didn't really, or especially the Senate under Mitch McConnell, didn't actually want any of those fights and largely avoided them. In 2020, though, we've seen a couple of amazing changes in this country, not simply in support of the police, but in more specifically Catholic issues like gender reassignment for underage children. These are the kind of things that we weren't dealing with in 2015. And some social conservatives feel that the 2020 platform really leaves them behind on that.
Yeah, Chris, and many of the speeches last night also spoke to the values of religious liberty and protecting life, messages that really should play well with the president's base.
The president came out originally, obviously running as a rather pro-abortion, not conservative socially candidate, really switched in the Nevada debate against Hillary Clinton, coming out strong for social conservatives and has been someone who's benefited them throughout his administration. The first night of the RNC continued that theme completely, and I expect to see that further. Donald Trump is probably the most vocal opponent of abortion we've seen in decades in the White House, and I think that will continue.
And Chris, there were also several efforts to highlight the inclusive nature of the party last night. Let's talk about the importance of that in this election year.
It was kind of wild to see this because we saw the huge amount of Black, Hispanics, and immigrants, Republicans and Democrats who took the stage last night. And it was wild to watch the different channels. I had all of the channels on, switching back and forth between them from just as I did during the Democratic National Convention. Those things went uninterrupted, the DNC, on almost all the stations, on PBS, on CNN and MSNBC. But they chose to interrupt frequently during the Republican National Convention to talk about how racist the president was. This stood in stark contrast to the messaging we were hearing from his strongest supporters, including family friends, including the Georgia Black Democrat, including a Cuban immigrant or refugee who were standing with the president and calling out all the things that he's done for uniting people. I think that's obviously going to be a major platform of the Republican Party, and I would not be surprised if President Trump wins more Black and more Hispanic men this round than he did 4 years ago.
Chris, we only have about a minute left, but I do want to get to this last question. Last week, the Democrats said that the Trump administration had really shown a lack of leadership as it relates to the COVID-19 pandemic. Do you think the speakers last night were able to kind of change that narrative?
Last night was great on narrative for that because last night was very policy centered. I think a lot of the non-politicians shone through. Politicians famously say nothing while speaking in great platitudes. A lot of the regular people they had on there, whether they were nurses or people who'd been sick or people who benefited from cures, really pushed back against that, drawing in personal stories that pulled in the audience and then bringing them back into how President Trump's policies impacted them personally and why they'd be supporting him. They stole the night, and I hope to see the Republican Party continue pushing forward people like that as this race goes on.
Well, Chris, thanks so much for your time. Christopher Bedford, senior editor for the Federalist. Thank you again for your analysis. And just a reminder to stay with EWTN News Nightly all week long. We'll have comprehensive coverage of the Republican National Convention, including reports and analysis.